One referendum extends the definition of family beyond relationships based on marriage. The other replaces references to women's lives and a mother's duty in the home with an undertaking to strive to support the provision of care by members of a family to one another. Well, I'm joined in the studio now by four people with a clear view on these questions. I have Chair of the National Women's Council of Ireland, Orla O'Connor, and Fianna Fáil TD for Meath East and Minister of State at the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sports and Media, Thomas Byrne, and both are advocating for a yes, yes vote and advocating for a no, no vote. Our broadcaster, journalist and barrister Brenda Power, and Aintu leader and TD for Meath East, Peadar Tobin. And you're all welcome. Thank you for being here to discuss this morning. We'll get straight into it. Thomas Byrne, what is a durable relationship?
A durable relationship in the Constitution will be other relationships that will be recognised as founding the family. So the key thing in the Constitution in Article 41 is the family. And at the moment, the Constitution only recognises the family founded on marriage. What's going to happen now if this is passed is that the Constitution will recognise families, whether founded on marriage or on other durable relationships.
Well, what is that, I suppose, is the question.
Well, the key thing is, what is a family? That's the key thing for the Constitution. And what we're saying here is that the family will be extended beyond marital relationships, but all the while, the Constitution will continue to recognise the family as the primary and fundamental unit group of society and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. So the important point is, what is a family? At the moment, the family is only founded on marriage. The Constitution will extend that to other durable relationships. And what that means is that it will include other relationships, such as Irish law already recognised, including cohabitants, including single-parent families, and the wide variety of relationships that are in Irish society and Irish life at the moment.
Well, Paddy, you object to that. You object to this term durable relationships. Why?
Yeah, because it's just because Thomas was not able to answer a question. What is a durable relationship? The Minister hasn't been able to answer it. Nobody has been able to answer it from the government's perspective. And actually, we've been told that a judge will decide what it is in the future. That's reverse democracy. In a democracy, the people make the law. The judges then apply that law to society. There's serious implications for the sloppy language in these amendments, potentially on succession, taxation, social welfare, all of these things. And the government can't tell us what those consequences are because it can't tell us the definition.
Well, what are you concerned about specifically in that regard?
Well, obviously, if you have for example, succession law is a very big thing in Ireland. There's often cases that come before the courts of different members of the family disputing wills, for example. And what you often see is the judges obviously make a decision on the basis of what the definition of a family
Thomas
is.
Thomas Byrne, you're dying to get in there.
Because it's not true. The judges make their decision in succession law on the Succession Act. That's how they make decisions, on the Succession Act. And your rights to succession, whether if there's no will, whether it's a wife, whether it's a cohabitant, whether it's a child, a married child, an unmarried child, come from succession law. Statutes, laws that the Oireachtas passes, they don't come from the Constitution. They come from laws that we pass.
Just for an example of this, if there was an individual who made a decision to leave property to a nephew and they got married, well then in the married situation of that family, that will become null and void. Now, who knows, for example, what kind of durable relationship would nullify a will in the future? And that's a serious question. And it's like the idea that we have a society, a democracy, that can't even define the terms that we're putting into the Constitution is incredible. The Constitution is the fundamental law. It defines the rights of its citizens and it defines the responsibility of the government. And
can I get to you, Orla O'Connor, here on the other side of this? I mean, in your view, what families will benefit from that change in wording?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what's really important for people in this referendum with regard to the family is, in the Constitution right now, we are excluding thousands of families. We're excluding unmarried families, lone parents. And that is so important that they're included. It's so important that there's over 40% of children are born into unmarried families. It's so important that they're included. to have a definition of the family based on marriage, we know we're excluding people by that. And that is ultimately...
And you believe this change does include
it absolutely
families.
includes them. And that's the choice that people will have on the 8th of March. Do you want to include those families? And I firmly believe that for the vast majority of people in Ireland, of course they think unmarried families, unmarried couples are a family. But we have to get out and vote for that on the 8th of
Brenda,
March.
you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, again, the fact that we cannot define the meaning of the word durable has to be a concern. The only attempts at defining it that I've heard so far have sort of seemed to suggest that it has to be some kind of a romantic relationship. Do you get Christmas cards sent to you as a couple? Do you get invited to places as a couple? So here, Valentine's Day, we're telling any single parent who is not in a durable relationship that she's not a family. If you're not in a durable relationship, if you're not married and not in a durable relationship, you do not meet the definition of family.
Orly, you don't see that here.
Because we know, and I mean, the minister said that, and the government have said that durable relationship does include one-parent families, lone parents, and that's...
But who's the durable relationship with? Who is, if you're not in a romantic relationship, if you're not in a durable... They're already protected, or the family relations between parents and children are already protected.
And the heart of this is, do we want to include unmarried families and lone parents, or do we want to keep a definition?
We're excluding them.
Just go ahead and explain your position again.
Yes,
go ahead.
We're excluding them by saying that if you're not in a durable relationship or married, you are not a family. So if you're not in a durable relationship, if you are a lone parent, not with a romantic partner, not getting Christmas cards, not getting invited to places with a partner, you are not in a durable relationship, so you're not a family. And the other concern, Claire, and again, Minister O'Gorman has tried to dismiss this, but the reality is there has to be a possibility of a three-way durable relationship. If you have a same-sex couple with the surrogate mother of their child who is deeply involved in that child's upbringing, that has to be a three-way durable relationship. And if one of those partners dies under the recent Supreme Court ruling, they're both entitled to claim widow's pension or widow's
Thomas Byrne, what do you say to that? To three-way relationships, or triples as they're known in common parlance?
Look, I mean, this is just probably the most egregious example of a red herring that's been ever thrown into a referendum debate. And we've had these red herrings thrown into every single referendum debate that we've had. I would ask people to read the information that comes from the Referendum Commission. Read it yourself. It's very simple. There's no European treaty attached to it like there would be on European referendums. The language is very, very simple. And we've seen so many red herrings. We've seen Pala here talk about someone wanting to leave land to a nephew and a marriage invalidating the will. That's long-standing succession law in Ireland, that a marriage revokes a will.
But the point is that a marriage does revoke a will. And if you're now in a durable relationship, will that revoke a will?
That comes from laws that the Oireachtas makes. That comes from statute laws.
Those laws are based on the Constitution.
It doesn't come from the Constitution. Women had no rights to their husband's property until the Succession Act in 1965. The Constitution was in place for about 30 years at that point. It comes from the Oireachtas and decisions that we make. And the courts will have deference to the views of the Oireachtas in terms of interpreting the Constitution, if they're called upon, and they have already.
If this is passed, though, can you see a situation where three people are in court saying we have a durable relationship and therefore we should be recognised?
Well, we've already had a similar case in court where the Supreme Court said that polygamous relationships weren't recognised in Ireland a number of years ago in the context of immigration. We've already had that decision. We've had decisions like that at the European Court of Human Rights,
but this will change
which don't recognise polygamy. It won't change it because we've already had
polygamous. We're talking about durable relationships, not based on marriage.
Just very the government have refused to define what it is. So they refuse to have pre-leg scrutiny, which would be the normal case where people can ask questions. In pre-leg scrutiny, TDs would be able to ask, people from the department, what tax differences would it make? What differences would it make to immigration? What differences would it make to succession? The government refused that. The government actually refused amendments in the Shannons which sought to define durable relationship again. And, even an FOI was put in by Michael McDougall to the department to find out what advice the minister had got to the consequences of this. And the minister has refused to deliver that. So the minister is asking people to put in a definition-free article or amendment into the Constitution, which will have enormous consequences. And the Constitution should not be treated in such a poor fashion.
No, I don't agree. What we're being asked to do is to relook at our definition of the family and to see that not all families are based on marriage. And this is really important. It's really important to lone parents and unmarried couples. It's really important because of the legacy in the way in which we've treated unmarried couples, unmarried mothers, unmarried families.
But if you're not in a durable relationship, you're not a family.
This is the choice that people will have. And yes, they're absolutely included in this definition. And it's insulting to all of those unmarried couples and parents out there who are asking for that recognition for them and their children.
Brenda, go ahead.
I don't think anybody or most people would have had a difficulty if this proposal was simply to take out the words on which the family is based after the definition of marriage or the pledge to support marriage. It's the durable relationships, the unnecessary word salad that is being stuffed in there that nobody seems to know what it means and that can have any number of interpretations in the future. But at the moment, it would seem to me unequivocally the fact that if you're not in a durable relationship or marriage, you're not a family.
Okay, Thomas, I'll come back to you.
The word durable relationship, I think, only comes up once in a court case, actually, with Marie Baker. And in that scenario, it was immigration law, and durable relationship was understood in that case to be an intimate or a sexual relationship, which means that it actually leaves out in that definition single parent families, and that's so it's not an inclusive definition. It's a term which means nothing. And I think that either the government had done it through sloppiness, or they actually want the term to be mobile in the future in terms of what it means. Like, when does a short-term relationship become a durable relationship? What date does that happen on? These are important questions.
So Thomas, why not define durable relationship?
Because we do that through legislation of the Oireachtas. And in fact, we've already done it in terms of cohabitation. We've already done it in terms of the social welfare system and lone parent families. But what we have here, again, is red herrings. And I have to say, I do smile when Brenda Parris says that nobody would have a problem if the wording was slightly different. It's the same voices that are opposing these referendums every single time. Brenda, have you ever supported a referendum? I don't know whether Padder has either. I guarantee if there was a referendum...
The last two.
You didn't support the abortion referendum.
I absolutely did, 100%. How dare you come in here so ill-informed?
And you support the marriage equality referendum.
100%, and if you want to look at my columns on it, I've written...
Marriage equality.
Yes, 100%. Go back and check it out, Thomas, because this is exactly the kind of misinformation that we're getting from the yes side, that anybody who disagrees with them are right-wing conservative godbotherers. That is absolutely disgraceful and part of the misinformation campaign, the big red Brexit bus that you have been floating around the country for the last while, trying to persuade people that if you don't support this, you're backward, you're conservative, you're ignorant, you're ill-informed. This is exactly the kind of abuse and you're levelling at people who disagree with you, and it is really, really dishonest of you, Thomas, to come out and say that, because it is absolutely not true. It's and I want you to apologise.
I accept that.
100%. But Claire, this is the line that we're getting all along.
I think we've corrected that point. Or do you want to come in there?
I do, because I think there is a second vote that is really critical for people. So we have one on the family, and we have the second vote that people will make in terms of the inclusion of a recognition and a valuing of care in our constitution.
This is the
which
one
we believe
that
is really
replaces
important.
the women in the home wording with the government shall strive to support carers, and people are concerned with the language around that they say that striving to support doesn't actually give carers anything. Now, why are you saying they should vote in favour of that?
Well, we think it's really important because for the first time there will be in our constitution, in our highest document, a recognition and a valuing of care. And care is really important in all our lives in terms of we all give and receive care. And by putting in place this recognition, it's recognising a traditional role that women have played, but it's widening it out, and it's saying that we need to recognise care within families. And also, and I think this is really important, and we've seen this in previous referendums, this can then underpin critical policy and legislation from this government, but also from future governments. And I know, and I mean, I'm out on the doors at the moment in canvassing, and people want to see change with regard to care. And they see this as an opportunity for having a transformation with how we treat care, how we value it, how we support parents, how we support disabled people in terms of the supports that they need in their lives around personal assistance. Mm-hmm. By putting in place this value and recognition, it's an expression of intent.
Okay.
And it means future governments.
You've been campaigning on this for decades, and you believe that the people who support you want to see women in the home removed from the Constitution. Many women, Padder, believe that language is outdated. You disagree?
I would love to see the language updated to be more inclusive, for sure. But, I think there's two major problems with this. The government say that a woman's place should be where she wants to be, and I fully agree with that sentence, absolutely. But the reality of people's lives is that mothers and fathers are getting up at 6:30 in the morning, they're commuting for an hour and a half, they're working 9-hour days, they're doing it all in reverse in the evening time, they're on a treadmill because of the economic necessity of high rents and high mortgages, and they don't get to spend time with their family as they would like. And actually this does absolutely nothing for them, and in real terms, it actually reduces the level of protections that it has for those. And in terms of care, this again locates care singly within the family, so it insulates the government from any responsibility it has in terms of care for people with disabilities, older people, etc. Care has never been as devalued as it is today. Like, we have childcare providers closing on a weekly basis, nursing homes closing, children are being put into state care that are in unregulated emergency locations. So this is a virtue signalling meaningless husk of an amendment that does absolutely nothing for anybody.
Thomas Byrne.
Look, I think
Thomas Byrne, a meaningless husk of a referendum.
What voting no does is that we would all wake up on the morning after the referendum and see headlines all around the world that the Irish people decided to keep provisions in the Constitution talking about woman by her life within the home, and the state shall endeavour to ensure ... to the mothers to the neglect of their duties in the home, and that type of language remaining in the Constitution. And that's not something I don't think that the Irish people countenance. What the Constitutional Amendment does is extend the concept of care to other people within the family, which is normal, as the type of work that myself and Paolo do at home, as well as our other halves, undoubtedly, whether it's the care you talk about for people with disabilities, which you rightly mentioned, whether it's care for the elderly, or whether it's the normal, ordinary day-to-day care that everybody does in terms of dinners, or bringing children to football matches, or bringing elderly parents to hospital appointments, or whatever. The Constitution recognises that.
But Thomas, at the weekend, Roderick O'Gorman wrote that the women in the home language and wording has delivered nothing for women. So why are we to believe then, on the other side of this, that the state shall strive to support carers is going to deliver anything on that side?
Well, what the Constitution does, it reflects the society that we're in, and gives us a sort of a framework within which the Oireachtas then makes the laws that actually implement the Constitution. So the Constitution sets out the general principles and the rules as to how the state operates. But day to day in the Oireachtas, we pass laws every day of the week, and we have those debates about how best to support families, how best to support care, how best to support carers, and we do that all the time. But in our Constitution, this is our founding document. This is what reflects Irish society. And I think it's time to remove those articles from the Constitution, and, as has been requested by lots of people, to recognise the care that is given within families
Let's come to the other side of this. Brenda, you are not in favour of this.
No, and I'll tell you why. First of all, this is more of the spin, you see, that we're being subjected to. Thomas is telling us how embarrassed we'll be in front of the world if we don't take this provision out of the Constitution. I would say the morning after this is lost, the government will say, we've got to listen to what women are telling us about the reality of their lives. The fact is, and I saw Roderick O'Gorman say it on Monday, this absolute misinformation to the effect that the Constitution currently tells women their places in the home and criticises women. As he said in this piece, completely untrue, he said the Constitution is critical of women who choose to work outside the home. It does not. It says nothing about women who choose to work outside the home. What it says is that currently the Constitution the government should support women who are being forced, difference between choosing and being forced, who are being forced by economic necessity to work outside the home, that the government should endeavour to ensure that they do not need to do so for economic reasons. Replacing that with some mindless, meaningless nonsense about striving to support carers. I mean, the carers who are listening to this programme, the 98% of whom are women, have no option to strive to do the work they do. They bloody well have to get on and do it. This will impose no obligation of any kind on the government. You will never be hauled before the Supreme Court to account for a failure to strive.
But is there an obligation there now to protect those women?
But here's the thing, Claire, there's a case due before the Supreme Court this year in which a woman, a sole carer for an 18-year-old profoundly disabled boy, is trying to rely on Article 41.2 to get back the 85 miserable euro that this caring government has docked from her because her partner, not her husband, her partner's income has gone to 45,000 a year. She's caring for a boy who has Down syndrome, autism, hypothyroidism, hyperactivity, epilepsy, doesn't sleep. She's on 24-hour duty. The government has taken 85 euros from her. She went to the Supreme Court last November, asked that this be considered as a matter of exceptional public importance, Article 41.2 in respect of her rights as a stay-at-home carer for a disabled boy, and the Supreme Court said this provision has never, this is, I'm quoting exactly from the determination, has never been given extensive consideration in this or any other court with respect to the rights it might confer on the stay-at-home parents of disabled children. 3 weeks, Claire, after that determination was made, we got a date for the referendum. Women's Day. Turn up, vote yes, and get a pink cupcake and a pat on the head.
Orla.
It's been 87 years since this has been in our constitution. It has never delivered for women.
Not yet.
It has not yet. 87 years.
Orla,
so that means...
Brenda, I just want to give Orla some time to respond to all that. Go ahead.
Up to now, it has been limiting for women. It is sexist. It is outdated. It solely talks about women's lives in the home and the duties within the home. And it has never given any protection. We now have an opportunity of putting something in the constitution which at least is recognising the value of care, because it is so important the Constitution reflects the reality of our lives.
Well,
it's not
you
the
say
reality
to
of
the 98% of women who are
solely
carers.
define them within the home.
What would you say to
a
that
women's
carer?
place is wherever she wants it to be.
Brenda, I just want to hear from the other side here from Thomas, go ahead, and then I will come back to you in a moment. Go ahead, Thomas.
Brenda's talking about a case that's coming up to the Supreme Court that might go one way or the other. This case has already been lost in the High Court.
Not this one.
It's already been lost in the High Court.
Yeah, but the Supreme Court is now going to look at it and
but that's on top of 80 years of nothing coming from these particular articles.
And you're telling us something is going to change with this.
Well, you're telling us that something's going to change in the Supreme Court if we only just wait. But that's in my opinion.
The Supreme Court has said it has never given this provision extensive consideration before. Never.
And you're saying that all of a sudden it's going to be a radical departure from Supreme Court jurisprudence on this issue.
Would you think that woman is going to vote yes? That woman caring for that boy. Do you think she's going to vote yes? I would doubt it.
Into her case at all, except to say that she didn't win the case in the High Court.
Bring it away from that case, because there was a choice here to delete and not replace this wording. So why do you think it was important to replace the existing wording with what we have here around shall strive to support?
I think it's very important wording. What is being removed is a statement, really, that it is women who do the care within the home.
And what's been changed?
The care that's been talked about here is care for everybody within the family,
98%,
regardless of their circumstances.
I need to just give some time here. Go ahead.
And we're removing that because it does stereotype women into that particular role. It absolutely does. And what the new article does then is to recognise that there are various forms of care within family by different people. That can be very ordinary care, or it can be extraordinary care. And what the article is saying is that the state will strive to support that. And again, and a very important point in all of this in terms of what our Constitution does. Our Constitution does not set the rate for the carer's allowance, for example. It never has, and I suspect it never will. The Oireachtas does that on a day-to-day basis. And the Constitution is the framework around which we work. And I think what some on the no side are looking for precision in terms of what the state's obligations are going to be in every single scenario that could confront a carer. And the Constitution is never going to do that. The Oireachtas does that. And that's why we have elections, and why a democratically elected government decides how money is to be spent. But the Constitution sets the framework for that around which we pass those laws.
Heather.
So as the point is, since the new year started, I've strived to stay off junk food, and unfortunately I haven't made it. I think the government say they're going to strive to do things, and if you look at the evidence, they certainly haven't done it. There are about 300,000 unpaid carers in this country at the moment. People with disabilities and their carers are struggling to get the basic needs. And actual fact, the fact that the government left out the state's responsibilities in this is a disaster. It actually is, as Tom Clonan had said, it's actually a toxic amendment that reduces the ability of people to access services from the state in the future. It indemnifies the states from their responsibility on this. I've also got problems that, this amendment also deletes the home from the Constitution, and it doesn't shock me at all that the government are deleting the home from the Constitution when there's 13,300 people who are homeless.
Why do you say that's happening?
Because the government promised to bring about a constitutional amendment to give people the right to a home. In actual fact, they didn't. They brought about a constitutional amendment that actually deletes the word home from the Constitution. It's also deleting the word woman from the Constitution too. And I do think that's an important issue. There is another reference.
There are other references to women in the Constitution. That is not correct.
there is another reference, other references to the woman in the Constitution, but it is deleting a reference, and that is.
And what, you're worried that this is mission creep?
Absolutely, the government's tried to delete the word woman from maternity legislation. They've also instructed the HSE to delete the word woman from cervical check documents, such as people with the cervix. They've told teachers to stop using the words mother and father in classrooms because it's not inclusive. And this has been teachers going into in-service days are being told by Department of Education staff to do this.
Permitted to do so. Go ahead.
I think it's very important. Padder talks about this, the home being removed from the Constitution. I mean, the family is recognised and will continue to be recognised as the natural, primary and fundamental unit group of society. That's here. That's staying in the Constitution, and we're extending that to cover durable relationships, as we've discussed already. But that's really, really important. Marriage continues to be protected under the Constitution as well. So all of these aspects of what the home is about, what the family is about, what the fundamental group of society, they're all remaining in the Constitution. And what we're merely doing here is on the family referendum is merely extending it to other people, which is about half the population in terms of children at the moment, actually coming from non-marital families. And in terms of care within the home, saying that that's not solely the responsibility of women. Mm-hmm. That women are not just about life.
Why didn't you add in mother and father into that particular?
If our concern here, Padder, is in relation to women, Article 41.2 limited women's lives, and it underpinned so many barriers for women in terms of being able to participate.
Justice Susan Denham has actually stated that that's not the case.
But also, it's just not true to say that, Orla, because the 1980 Murphy tax judgment, if you remember that was a case in which a woman objected to the fact that her income was being amalgamated with her husband's for tax purposes, in other words, pushing them into a higher tax bracket. Mrs. Murphy went to the Supreme Court and said, this is an assault on my rights under Article 41, the one they want you to change, and is assault on my rights to work outside the home, and assault on my rights as a woman and as a mother. And the Supreme Court said, Mrs. Murphy, you're absolutely right, and they threw that out. That was a direct support deriving from Article 41.
But it was thrown out. Sorry, it was just thrown out.
I'm going to quote
on the equality article in Article 41, which remains in the Constitution. We don't want to confuse
people. I hope we've given a fairly clear view of people at what's at stake on both sides. But of course, people who are voting will make up their own minds on the 8th of March on both referendums. Thank you both very much for coming in today on the programme. Let's take a break.